today or ever?
Well, today. Let's start with today, and then maybe we can go on forever after that one. Everybody ready to rock and roll? Okay. Shall we begin? Real quick, since we have guests, new guests, I think you guys have been here once maybe? Yes. Good. Mission of the Great Falls International Airport Authority is to optimize transportation services and development in our region. And the vision of the GFIAA is to maximize the airport's benefit to our region. So, welcome. If anybody has questions, as always, please stand up and talk to us, and we'll be glad to hear you. All right, with that, I'll call the meeting to order. With the quorum of the board present, I call the meeting to order. Roll call. Board members, Commissioner Aritz. Who was? Got it. Commissioner Bakke is here. Commissioner Evans.
Here.
Commissioner Gibbs.
Here.
Commissioner Lalonde.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
And Commissioner Timbo.
Here.
Hail, hail, the gang is all here. Let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, as always, we'll start off with the consent agenda. Consent agenda is made up of routine day-to-day items that require board action but do not appear to have significant impact. Any items may be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion and vote by any board member. With that, A, board member meeting and minutes from October. B, payroll checks totaling $124,352.89. C, maintenance and operation checks 25698 to 25753 totaling $653,503.44. D, approved passenger facility charges totaling $23,000. And finally, E, the financial report for October. Would anyone like to pull any of those for further discussion?
I just have one question on what the Volair aviation is.
Volair is our air service consultant. They do the data pulls for our origin destination data from the O&D database products, and then they put the presentations together for the airlines. So when we have those airline conferences, you can subscribe to those databases, but an annual subscription is tens of thousands of dollars. Or you can use a consultant to run your queries for you. So when we go to one of those air service conferences, it gets fairly expensive because they pull all the data for each of those individual airlines. Like we had, about eight airline meetings down there. So they pull all that data and compile 8 presentations for the airlines with them. So,
Good question. All right, with that, can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda as discussed? Okay, motion and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, with none, Deb?
Nope.
Copy. All right, with the motion and a second, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as described? In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed with the nay? Passes unanimously. On to the director's report.
yeah, thank you. A couple things to mention this month. We'll start off maybe with some date reminders. The airport holiday party is scheduled for, what's the date? 16th. December 16th at 5 p.m. Is that what we're doing?
4:30.
4:30 with the social hour.
Yeah.
We don't plan to have a board meeting this year, a business meeting. So we'll notice that just as a social meeting. And so we've been working with the concessionaire to figure out how we can do it as approved by the county with enough spacing and that type of thing. We won't be obviously doing a buffet, be a plated meal this year. So we are able to do that. We did check with the county, and Ken's been working out a way for us to be able to do that safely. So just so everybody knows. We have our presentation, our annual update to the city. That's on Tuesday the 2nd, Tuesday the 1st, that's next Tuesday, I guess. And so that we're in a working session, so that'll be about 5:30. The city would like the board all to attend if you can. There's a Zoom, it's a Zoom meeting, so we'll be doing PowerPoint via Zoom. So that'll be something. We'll see. I've only done a couple-
Are we going down there and then
No.
Zoom attending, or are we
No,
Zoom
we're
attending
Zoom
from-
attending.
from home?
Yeah, they don't want any of us to come.
All right.
Including me. So, so we'll try that remotely, and that'll be next Tuesday at 5:30. It's just our annual update that we typically give them. We only have a half hour this year, so we'll try to be pretty quick.
Todd?
Yes.
Todd?
Uh-huh.
The last, I think that I knew, we were supposed to call in on some phone line or something. So did I miss it? Has there been an actual Zoom invite?
Alyssa's not here. Will you check with Alyssa? My understanding was they fixed that so that now it is a Zoom call. And I thought I had Alyssa send that out, but maybe she didn't.
Yeah, no, she might have, and I might have.
I don't think I got it
I
either
haven't
yet,
seen
so.
it.
Okay, we'll check on that. My understanding was they wanted us to delay that couple weeks so they could kind of fix their system. And I thought they had fixed it, but let's check on that and we'll get back to you.
Okay.
And then we are awaiting some direction on the TIF application. We have submitted a TIF application for our condominium warehouse project, and we're trying to get scheduled to see the Planning Commission, which is sort of the first step. We have a conference call next week to discuss the project and the TIF rules and the potential to bond the TIF proceeds. So we'll have that call next week. And then there at one point was some thought that we might be able to get on the agenda for December 8th, but I don't know how realistic that is, if where we are in the process. So I guess we'll find out more on Monday. But we are trying to get on that TIF application agenda so we can get to the city council and stand a chance of getting that approved for bonding so that we can move forward with utilities work by this summer. Just for a construction update, we are largely done with the roadway project. We had a call with FAA this morning, and we would like to do some additional guardrail. We initially thought we were going to overrun the project, but as we've gotten through the project, we've actually underrun it substantially. So we had cut some guardrail out, essentially from down near the AvMax hangar all the way around past customs. We had cut that out of the scope of the project, but it looks like we'll have enough money to eventually add that back. The FAA said they would allow that, so we are planning to do that. If you're familiar with that area, right now we have basically concrete caissons with a cable. And what we've seen is when people hit those, it doesn't completely arrest their progress. So we'd like to replace that with a more standard guardrail like we've done on the rest of the project. We're also working with them to maybe do the additional light heads that are out towards the interstate. We'd like to replace those with LEDs, which would just reduce the scope of our project in a couple years. But the FAA wants some more information on that. And then we have a few signs that we're going to replace. Just miscellaneous ones as we got to the end of the project. And the new intersection down near Great Falls Jet Center is now a T intersection, which we really hadn't had before, and so we need a stop sign there. As we got that road connected, we realized we need some traffic control down that way. There's a few signs that are just beyond their useful life, so we're working with the FAA to try and get those replaced so we have new signage. And so we are going to kind of reopen that project a little bit and finish up a few more things. We still have grant dollars left during the current year. And if we don't use them this year, because next year we have a large discretionary project, then that'll just reduce the amount of discretionary grant we get next year. So it's to our benefit to get work done this year. That'll maximize our total grant receipt over the 2 years. We finally have made some tile selections for the bathroom project. So those tiles are on order. The facilities, the fixtures themselves were going to be back ordered by a number of months when we talked to the contractor months ago. And so those should be in around the first of the year so we can begin that project. Really anxious to get that underway and have that done by summer travel. So we have the bathrooms looking good. Anything else on construction I'm missing there, Rod?
Just a couple updates on the ALZ for the guard, the approach or the assault landing zone lighting. we have that MCCA, the Military Cooperative Construction Agreement with the Guard. So that's moving along. Pre-bid December 8th and bid opening December 14th. So in the bid contracts, I was looking through them. It looks like they want to have that project complete by June 25th. So if we can get it bid on the 14th, that gives the contractor plenty of time to get his materials, and then it's a 30-day contract, so it won't take long to get that put together. And then with John,
Say the dates one more time.
the pre-bid meeting is December 8th,
Yep.
and then bid opening is December 14th.
And then you said completion date, they want,
June 25th.
so you did say June, I think.
Yeah, so, and it's a 30-day contract, so if they can get their stuff probably, hopefully by April or so, and, maybe they can get to work in May and
Gotcha.
have it done sooner than that.
You
so.
said June, I thought you meant January with the 30-day contract.
Oh, better get
A
going.
little cold in that dirt then.
Yep, and then, John mentioned the restrooms, that's still scheduled to start around the first of the year. I did put the tile samples over there if anybody wants to take a look at them. And then the TSA work that we bid with Guy Tobacco Construction, still waiting on some lease stuff before he starts that, so maybe a couple weeks we can get that going. And I think that's it there.
Great. And wanted to update you guys on the Loves project. I corresponded with the MDT again today. Still no movement. They've sent the draft language that they want to use to Federal Highways. Apparently Federal Highways changed the process around October, and so we're back in progress waiting under the new process. So nothing new to report there. We're still hopeful that at some time in the next couple of months, they'll allow the water that's currently flowing over the property to be channeled into a ditch and flow across the property so that we can get that development underway. I'm sure Loves will be anxious to see some dirt fly this spring if we can get that far by then. So still waiting. And then the last thing I was going to mention too is, as we've been converting the accounting system and closing out the year end, David had noticed that we have some older receivables with the airlines that we need to clean up. A couple other ones too, but most of those we've gotten cleaned up. But there seems to be something with the airlines where there's some mismatching of what we bill and what we get paid. And so, David, do you want to maybe describe that a little more?
Yeah, so at June 30, 20, we over 90 days, and Delta is the primary one that we're interested in. At June 30, Delta had 48,000 plus outstanding over 90. When I looked into over 90, it was May and June of 19. So did some analysis, looked at remittances and everything. So brought it to John's attention, and we have brought it to the new regional manager attention as we go forward. So it was 2 months of rent payment was the lion's share of it. So we also have some landing fees where we would invoice at this level and get a remittance that was $200 or $300 different, and then the next one. So there's ongoing communication with the regional manager at Delta to try to resolve these things, because we're sensitive of the airline's financial situation in the current environment. So the communication is ongoing, and we're working forward. And as a protocol in the new accounting system, on the 15th of the month, 15th or 16th of the month, I run accounts receivable, and we are sending statements to our airline partners, and we are concentrating on that which is 61 days and out. Because we believe in our business model that, and this is with me learning the business and talking with John and Laura, that there's not a lot, that people should be able to resolve their receivables between 0 and 60 days. So we're keeping an eye on that. You know, I have full faith and confidence that it's going to be resolved. And, you know, my emails aren't bouncing back, get the heck out of my way, so.
Yeah, and that was approximately the time that SkyWest took over the Salt Lake route. So we're trying to figure out if that had a factor in that, because currently, as it is today, SkyWest flies the Salt Lake route on their own. It's not a direct Delta route. And so they're responsible for the profit and loss and
SkyWest is not the problem, as we are well.
What was that?
Say that again?
Sorry, what was that?
I don't think that was not you talking, was it, Deb?
No.
Okay. I think somebody else is on the line.
Well, could be.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to determine, if that factors into it, that maybe there was a division in where the bills should have gone that we missed during that time frame. So we'll see what the what the issue was, and hopefully, you know, get those fixed up in the next couple of months. So going forward, the new accounting system, as David said, will be much easier for us to follow those things, because we'll have a more automated process for billing. We won't be filling out the hand invoices and that kind of thing. So that should be much easier. So we'll keep you informed on that as we go forward on that side.
So previously, we didn't send out statements.
I don't think we had statements. We sent every month. We sent with a bill.
Yeah.
You know, the invoice.
In
But
the
it
old
didn't have to
accounting
pass
system,
due.
there was just an invoicing, there wasn't a statement of tracking of this one's paid, this one's unpaid. So in the new accounting system, we have the ability of making a statement that has as much or as little detail as you want.
And at this point, as of 6/30/20, we're not setting up an allowance. You feel like we're comfortable we're going to get paid?
At the current time, we are not setting up an allowance. As we gain more information on these and the airline's position gets more precarious or less precarious, then John and I are going to have further discussions about whether we do want to set up an allowance.
Sure.
And there could certainly be a couple explanations for it. That's why we want to initiate these conversations and find out, what did happen here. I mean, maybe they paid those invoices at a different time. It could be, that they never received the invoice at the right remittance address. There's a lot of pieces and parts to it. So that's why we want to open the conversation and just see what, if they received the invoice, did they just not pay it? Those types of things. I mean, it's interesting because we did allow delays this spring, as you remember. We allowed them to delay their payments once COVID hit, but I think ultimately no one really delayed their payment.
We haven't seen a lot of it.
So more than likely, it's just some type of oversight. Either there was a change in personnel or a change in the way we were supposed to invoice that. That's coming into the close of our fiscal year, so it's hard to say. Or maybe it bounced back. I mean, we didn't. It never got delivered. I mean, it's difficult to say what happened, and so that's why we want to work with the airlines to kind of figure out what was happening there.
How much are we talking about?
48 at June 30. 48 change.
Yeah.
And 2 invoices comprise like 44 of the 48. The rest is like the mismatch of the landing fees
Right.
where we invoiced here. So, if we can get a dialogue, and a discussion going of, did an ACH transaction get initiated at Delta and it didn't go all the way through the system? Okay, well, that's fairly easy to resolve.
Yeah. So more to come in the future months.
Alyssa said that Krista from the city will be sending out an email on the 25th that has the Zoom information in it for that meeting. And it'll all come to you directly from Krista, so look for that. Yep.
Perfect.
And it's going to be a Zoom call?
It is going to be
Yeah,
Zoom.
that's what I had thought.
Good.
Is that it?
Yep, that's it.
All right, let's move on to the agenda. Just as a note, are there any agenda items that present a conflict of interest and subsequently required a member of the board to abstain from discussion and/or vote? Anyone have any? All right, with no members abstaining, let's go item number 1, warehouse joint venture recommendation.
Yes, as most of you are aware, over the last couple of months, we had put out a request for proposals for a joint venture partner to develop these condominium warehouses over next to the jail on the property next to I-15. We received one proposal. That was from Dick Anderson Construction. We met with them last week along with the selection committee and had a productive meeting to discuss kind of the tenements of the project and what we were trying to do, how we can both create the best value for the project in our respective parts. Them being a constructor that's done a lot of metal building work, and us being in the land development role, able to bring utilities to that area. And so I think it was a very productive meeting, which the selection committee was at. We had 3 members of the board present during the meeting. And from here, what we'd like to do is recommend to the board that, kinds of strange noises, recommend to the board that you authorize us, the staff, to go out and negotiate a contract for the joint venture partnership. And so from there, what we would do next is engage Dick Anderson in those contract discussions, try to develop some type of master agreement that would kind of spell out what everybody's going to do and how we would function together. And then from there, sometime in the spring, we'd come back to the board and recommend that we invest in the first 2 buildings by building those speculative bays, and then the 3rd bay would be a joint venture partnership between the 2 of us, which would ultimately be sold to the Great Falls Truck Wash folks. And so that's kind of the trajectory we're on. Obviously, the TIF application's a big part of that. We need to see what will happen there. We've got to get through the contract negotiations. But I felt like the meeting, there was definitely a meeting of the minds as what the project is trying to be and how we could be successful together. And I do think, and have heard from the community throughout, that they think it's a good project for the community, that there will be interest in these types of developments here in Great Falls, and an opportunity for small business in the community to find a space that right now isn't readily available. So I just turn it over to the selection committee if any of you have any thoughts on how the meeting went last week, and if you guys would recommend that we proceed with those negotiations.
I'll start it off real quick. Overall picture, as John said, was very positive. The general scheme of things, it has a lot of flexibility in it, in that obviously we want to be able to sell the lots, but depending on the size and scale and ability to break down the units to make them usable for anybody that might want to lease or buy one. And then Dick Anderson also said that for the size and for them to bring in the crews to actually build them, they may look at building 4, 5, maybe even 6 units for scale if they're going to bring the crews up there to do that. Obviously knowing that our limitations are basically putting in the infrastructure and the utilities and then figuring a way to spread those costs over the period. So for us, it sounds like Dick Anderson and those guys are very interested on a project that could be significantly bigger, and under the auspices that if you build it, they will come type of deal, that it would move forward and could have some bigger and faster than even we're thinking about. Other thoughts, Casey?
Yeah, no, I think Dick Anderson would be a great partner. I think the meeting went well. I think everybody's on the same page. more or less everyone has the same vision. The only concern I had out of the meeting was, you know, I know, John, you were trying to give a little sense of urgency about the TIF application coming up, which I think there should be some urgency with this. It felt like they were trying to pump the brakes a little bit. I think they wanted to put some more thought into actually having a plan to present before we went public with it. You had mentioned, you know, going public basically as soon as today after this meeting, and they kind of pumped the brakes there a little bit, so that was kind of my only concern. Rightfully, they want to, you know, put some more thought into this, I think, before they announce the partnership. So that was my only concern, is trying to get a little bit more sense of urgency out of them for the TIF application. But otherwise, I think the vision's there, and I think the partnership would be just great.
Rich, any thoughts?
Excuse me, I would agree with both your comments. The one takeaway I did have was, I think Dick Anderson's optimism matched our optimism and our enthusiasm. And coming from them and their perspective on what they see, not just at Great Falls, but the surrounding state, that means a lot to me. So they see the value in what this will bring.
And I think this type of joint venture really does play to the strengths of both organizations, and we can use our knowledge of the logistics side of the industry, you know, what the cargo carriers are doing and what the market's doing in terms of trying to move goods in and out of Great Falls in the future. I mean, the growth of Amazon, Prime Air, and all those things. We can use that market knowledge to help find tenants for this project and add some validity to it as a project that has the foreign trade zone capability for distribution or light manufacturing use and those types of things. You know, we bring a lot to the table there. At the same time, one thing we're probably not the best at is identifying those creative construction solutions that can provide some architectural interest to the building affordably. You know, where can we break up these big wall sections and add a window? How can we get a vestibule over the door? What door height is the market going to want? How can we build a spec unit that might have the ability to be constructed out to meet a tenant's need up front? So I mean, can we build a plain wall unit that might be converted with a door later on and framed out? Maybe the floor isn't finished, so that we can add bathrooms in different configurations. You know, how do we find those construction solutions? And that's really where the partnership, I think, is going to be ideal, because, you know, we have that construction company with a lot of experience with this type of building as a partner, and so we can both find ways to make this more a more successful project. And so we have very patient capital. I mean, this helps Dick Anderson because they don't have to outlay for the land up front, because we can recover that land cost over a long period of time, which makes the project easier for them to afford. So I think there really is a good matching here of potential reward and capabilities. So I really think this is a good way to go about it, and I think they'll be a good partner, and I really do think we should proceed with those negotiations.
Okay, Ben?
Yes.
Yes. I just wanted, I don't know if you can do anything. I can hear you and John perfectly. I cannot hear anything anyone else is saying.
Gotcha.
I don't know if you guys can increase the volume, or if there's something we should all be hearing, maybe paraphrase it back to us.
Turn it around.
They would just have to get closer.
We could try to move that in the middle. Do you think that would help?
I think it's going to make it harder because you guys were talking.
Deb, I can paraphrase for you real quick. Basically, Casey said that he agrees it's a good project, but that he got the impression that the Dick Anderson Company wanted to put the brakes on a little bit while they further assess and do some investigation onto it, but overall they were positive. And then Rich's comment was, remind me one more time.
Just a shared optimism.
Oh yeah, that everybody agrees that it's something good for our community and where we're at right now. So we didn't come out of it with any feeling of negativity that nobody really wanted to be there and then we didn't want the project to go forward. It was just the pace to make it go forward with us understanding, and John made the point that the whole thing really rests on us getting the TIF application approved so that we can afford to do our portion of the utilities and setup.
Okay, thank you.
You betcha. Okay, With that, we'll get into the whole board discussion. First, though, can I get a motion to recommend that the airport director requests authorization to negotiate a joint venture development contract with Dick Anderson Construction for the small footprint warehouse development project?
I'll make the motion as stated.
Okay, we've got a motion, a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any discussion by the whole board, the board as a whole, on the project?
Is that project down there where the blacktop has been laid down and rolled over?
No, that's, it's just to the east of that. Is it east? North?
Yeah, kind of to the east.
Is it-
It's right next to the jail.
So it's right next to the
Between
jail.
the jail and the,
Where we've got the millings, we're actually gonna lease that, or open that up for RV storage. So people can store their RV up here, so that's a cash flow enhancer. We had some extra millings off of the road, and rather than pile them in a giant pile, like many of the other millings we have, we decided to spread those and create a little area where we can park some RVs. So that's our plan there. And in thinking that, if this project were successful, that, some of those potential RV folks might be future customers of an enclosed area.
John, have you reached out to Ed Butcher yet? It's only been a couple days, but you said you were gonna.
Yeah, we did, we've talked some, with them, and, I think, his feedback was, the Department of Revenue has been pretty flexible in defining, what those rules mean, and so I think, we'll just have to continue those conversations with the city and see what their thoughts are. It's a shame we don't have 2 or 3 more of the units sold, so we kind of get a feel for who the customers are. I'm actually going to Bozeman over the weekend, and I plan to stop into the development down there next to the airport and see who all's in there. I know there's some metal fabrication guys who are doing, they're making like high-end railing and that kind of stuff in there, and so there is some manufacturing in these units elsewhere, and depending on where you are and the kind of construction it is, there's often more or less of that type of thing. Our market, we feel, tends more towards the industrial side here in Great Falls, because we have more industry than a lot of communities our size. And so these units with the oil water separator, sprinkled metal construction, they really do lend themselves well to the light industrial portion, as well as logistics and even final assembly, because this is our cargo hub here, and so we think like the eBay business, where they might be making something and exporting it here locally, where they're doing some assembly or something, this is the ideal space for them. But we just don't know what the future looks like. We could end up with more of that or less of that, and so it is a tough situation, because clearly the TIF rules tend to pursue, or tend to reflect more of an industrial type of company. But in those rules, it does talk about export and interstate commerce and using technology-based businesses that are adding value. And so I think, that kind of lends itself to talk a little bit about interstate commerce and the other things that might be here in addition to that light industrial, things like a truck wash or a diesel mechanic, or a guy that does modifications for new industrial or new environmental standards on diesel engines. I mean, these are all things that are kind of on the fringe of that definition, but they need to go somewhere in our community, and that is the segment of the community that is going to be growing as we watch e-commerce reducing the amount of local retail we have, and local things that, like the shopping that we're all aware of having closed, in the last couple of years. As that's replaced with more e-commerce, that means more trucking-related business, more things like that we've got to accommodate the community. We think this is a good spot for that. So yeah, we did have some conversations, and it's just a matter of interpretation about those rules and everyone's best guess as to how the market will respond to this development. So I think we'll know more after Monday's meeting with the city about what their thoughts are on where the challenges are.
Does the city have the final say in this, or is there an appeals process to it?
No,
You might want to rephrase the question so Deb and Tony can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Casey is asking if the city has the final say on the approval of the TIF application. Yeah, so the TIF application is essentially, there's 2 hearings. One's with the planning board, and then the second hearing is with the city council where it's actually approved. And so we were hoping to meet with the planning board on 12/8, but I think the city wants to talk to us first and just get some more information and kind of talk through what would make this easier for them to evaluate. So we may not get there on the 8th. I don't know when the next meeting is. But yeah, ultimately this, the TIF has to be approved by the city council. So at some point in the next number of months, we're going to have to, well, assuming we can get to that point where the staff is comfortable having us present this, we'll have to go before the city council. And I don't know that there is an appeal process for that.
All right. Any further questions or discussion? Okay. With no further questions or discussion, let's vote on.
Did you want to open up the public?
Oh, do we have any public comment on that? I'm sorry about that. Good question. No. Sounds like you guys are in favor of us being in favor.
Yeah.
Anything to add to it?
No, you
Okay.
guys covered.
Excellent. All right. Thank you for that. So, all in favor of allowing the airport director to authorization to negotiate joint venture development contract with Dick Anderson Construction for the small footprint warehouse development, state so by saying aye.
Hi.
Okay. All against, say nay. Approval passes. Go for it. All right. With that complete, moving on to our next agenda item of the private hangar assessment, or assignment, assignment.
Laura, do you want to speak to this one?
Sure. Just to review it again, this is the private hangar down on the end there. It's a larger one that Jan built back in '07, Electric City Aero, and he divided it in half and sold half of it to Lowenbro, has sold the other half to Lauren Smith, and now Lauren's wanting to buy Lowenbro's other half, so he'll own the whole thing. So we're just assigning the lease underneath the hangar for the ground, and the agreement provides for that to go ahead and assign it, and we don't see any reason not to do that, so that's what we would recommend.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve assigning of the lease to the new owner of the hangar to Lauren Smith from Lowenbro?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Rich is a second. Any discussion? Any reasons not to assign the hangar? Excellent. Okay. With the motion a second and no further discussion, all in favor of assigning the lease to the new owner, Lauren Smith, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
And all opposed, nay. Measure passes. Okay. Moving on to any airport authority board comments. Let's start on the phone first. Tony, any comments for the board?
None.
Deb?
Nope, nothing for me.
Excellent. All right. Rich?
No, nothing.
Casey?
I'll be at Little Rock Air Force Base January and February.
Nice. Somewhere warm.
Warmer.
Missing out on the skiing, but
Yeah.
you'll get the good rain season.
So I'll participate via Zoom.
Oh, great. Sounds good. All right. Sir?
No, sir.
Okay.
Nothing.
All right. I have no additional comments. No board comments. Any additional public comments? All right. With no additional public comments, no further business to come in front of the board, I declare this meeting adjourned. Let's take a 5-minute break to the clock that never moves. And let's come back here at 1:50, about 10 minutes before that.
Comments.
And then for the work session. Say it again.
I'm going to put the clock in my comments.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I kept looking, thinking, oh man, I'm early. This is going to be great. And then I looked at oh man, I'm late.